I work for a company that is doing a lot of damage in the world. Facebook and Google are no longer companies, they're countries. They must be stopped. The government needs to step in and break up Google and Facebook. It's a better thing for the world. The single biggest thing is this company needs to be broken up. No king in the history of the world has been the ruler of 2 billion people. But Mark Zuckerberg is.
Today, Project Veritas undercover journalists have exposed another high-level executive at Facebook.
I would break it up and I would remove Zuck as the CEO. So Mark Zuckerberg is very concerned with health. In fact, the Chan Zuckerberg initiative.
I'm fascinated and terrified at the same time.
Like CRISPR, you should be. It's a fright. It's eugenics, and I don't know any way to stop it. I think the genie is out of the bottle, which is why a lot of shit goes down because people aren't paying attention. I can target racist people using just those 3 things. It's that easy because data is very powerful. Give me 5 things about you, and I can pretty much figure out everything else. AI is essentially evolving to become like human intelligence, and then it's going to go beyond human intelligence. And at that point, humans are expendable. It's not like the AI will try to kill us. They just won't care because it'll be so superior that it'll be like, these people don't matter. So I might be killing hundreds of ants when I walk in the park. I don't know and I don't care. It's not a thing that I think about. We will be like those ants.
What if the tech companies like Google and Facebook remain unchecked? Where do we go from there? What's going to happen? But what's going to happen?
Bad things.
We confronted Thomas, asked him to join our team of insiders. Here's what happened.
I just want to let you know that I intend to release our conversations to the American people.
You shouldn't do that.
Are you interested in interviewing on the record with us to clarify your statements to the American people?
No. Hello?
Hey, Benny. Hang up the phone. We hope this story will encourage Thomas to change his mind and many others like him.
COVID, gangbusters of ratings. COVID, gangbusters of ratings, right? Which is why we constantly have the death toll on the side. Let's make it higher. Like, why isn't it high enough, today? Like, it would make our point better if it was higher. It's fear. Like, fear really drives numbers. Fear is the thing that keeps you tuned in. If it bleeds, it leads. Yeah.
If it bleeds, it leads?
Yeah. No one ever says those things out loud, but it's obvious.
What you're about to see is so shocking. Admissions about COVID, its impact, the bias, and things that we've all suspected but have never been able to confirm until now.
Sad news doesn't do well with ratings, like if you can get someone impassioned, that does really well with ratings. Sad news back to back to back doesn't do really well unless it affects them directly. COVID, gangbusters of ratings, right? Which is why we constantly have the death toll on the side, which I have a major problem with, that we're tallying how many people die every day. Because I've even looked at it and be like, let's make it higher. Like, why isn't it high enough, today? Like, it would make our point better if it was higher. And I'm like, what am I rallying for? That's a problem.
Yeah.
That we're doing that, like this special red phone ring.
Yeah.
And they pick it up, and it's like the head of the network being like, there's nothing that you're doing right now that makes me want to stick. Put the numbers back up, because that's the most enticing thing that we have. So put it back up. So like things like that are constantly talked about. I mean, there's no such thing as unbiased news. Just like this. Any reporter on CNN. Okay. What they're actually doing is they're telling the person what to say. It's always like leading them in a direction before they even open their mouth. And the only people that we will let on the air, for the most part, are people that have a proven track record of taking the bait. Oh no.
Okay, can you define propaganda for me? Like, I think I know, but like, how is it, what's the mechanism?
If the agenda, say, is to like get like Matt Gaetz right now, he's like this Republican, like he's a problem for the Democratic Party because he's so conservative, right? And he can cause a lot of hiccups in passing of laws. So it would be great for the Democratic Party to get him out. So we're going to keep running those stories to keep hurting him and make it so that it can't be buried and like just, you know, settled outside of court and just like, you know, if we keep pushing that, it's helping us. That's propaganda. It's helping us in some way.
There are numerous platforms on which this group has been meeting and discussing this agenda, but the most important one is that of the World Economic Forum, which was invented in 1971 by a then 33-year-old Klaus Schwab. Its members are 1,000 global corporations with at least $5 billion in annual sales, politicians, media representatives, scientists, and other so-called high-profile personality. They meet once a year in Davos, but there are other such meetings, for example, in China. And since 1992, they have created and presented to us their own group of political leaders for the world. Among the first graduates, as I mentioned before, are Angela Merkel and Bill Gates in 1992. Others are Sebastian Kurz, up until recently Chancellor of Austria, Justin Trudeau, Prime Minister of Canada, Jacinda Ardern, Prime Minister of New Zealand, François Macron, President of France, and many, many more. This group, which is now called the Davos Clique, is openly, the publication The Great Reset by Klaus Schwab is one of the most important sources for this information, promoting the shifting of the world's assets to this group of super-rich people so that in 2030, ordinary people will own nothing and be happy, as it explicitly states there, under their one world government with a digital currency given to us by their one world bank. And they're also openly promoting, in close cooperation with people like the putative defendant Bill Gates, the Rockefellers and others, the drastic reduction of the world's population and the manipulation of the remaining population's DNA all the way into transhumanism. Their most important goal is, however, the controlled, by them of course, implosion of the completely looted financial system and simultaneous introduction of a digital currency issued by one world bank controlled by them, and just as important, the introduction of a world government under the UN which has come under their full control in 2019. For this purpose, they have made concrete plans for this corona pandemic since at least the spring of 2001, Operation Dark Winter, followed by another such rehearsal, the lockstep exercise by the Rockefeller Foundation in 2010, and finally Event 201 in October of 2019 in New York, sponsored by the Johns Hopkins Center for Health Security, the Rockefeller Foundation, the World Economic Forum, and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Members of the jury, we will call a number of different highly renowned expert witnesses from all walks of science, but also witnesses who will testify to the damage that they suffered as a result of getting the experimental injections in this trial. After our opening statements, we will start off in a week from now by calling former a member of the U.S. military James Bush, who participated in Operation Dark Winter in 2001, former members of the British intelligence services Brian Gerrish and Alex Thompson, and investigative journalists Whitney Webb and Matthew Arrett, former World Health Organization employees and advisors Dr. Sylvia Behrendt and Dr. Astrid Stuckelberger. They will explain to us the historical and geopolitical background of what we are confronted with. And they will show to us how this agenda has been planned for at least 20 years, starting with Operation Dark Winter in 2001, and some 10 years later, the lockstep scenario by the Rockefeller Foundation, ending with the dress rehearsal, Event 201, in October of 2019. And they will explain how, when there were no cases which they needed to declare a public health emergency of international concern, they created them by having defendant Drosten invent the story of asymptomatic infections, which don't exist, and how this PCR test can detect through mass screening of perfectly healthy people, those who are infected. A lie, as we will show. We will continue with the next group of witnesses, Dr. Wolfgang Wodak, an experienced lung specialist and former member of the German Bundestag and the Council of Europe, who managed to expose the other side's first attempt at a pandemic, the swine flu of 12 years ago, as a mild flu. Professor Ulrike Kemmerer, biologist from Würzburg University, Dr. Mike Jeden, former vice president of Pfizer, Dr. Sylvia Behrendt, Dr. Astrid Stockelberger, Professor Dolores Cahill of Dublin University, Professor Antonietta Gatti from Italy, Professor Bergholz from German Economic Forum. A digital passport through which each and every move is monitored and controlled, and one digital currency, which we will only be able to receive from one World Bank. Theirs, of course. At the conclusion of the case, and after you have heard all the evidence, we are confident that you will recommend indictments against all 6 putative figurehead defendants: Christian Drosten of Germany, Anthony Fauci of the United States, Tedros of the World Health Organization, Bill Gates, BlackRock, and Pfizer. Ladies and gentlemen, this case is about a long-planned agenda of a group of ultra-rich people and their financial mafia based in the city of London and on Wall Street to use a pseudo-pandemic as the guise behind which, while our attention is on the pandemic, they want to complete their decades-long efforts to gain full and complete control over all of us. What is behind the legend of the Wuhan wet market outbreak? They will show that the virus is no more dangerous than the common flu. The PCR test cannot tell us anything about infections, but is the only basis for all anti-corona measures, including the ultimate measure, the so-called vaccines. And the so-called vaccines are not only ineffective, but extremely dangerous. Regardless of the natural or man-made origin of the virus, our immune system is perfectly well capable of dealing with the virus, as evidenced by an infection fatality rate of between 0.14 and 0.15 or even less %. There was no excess mortality anywhere until the experimental injections started. There were not even any cases in early 2020. However, they needed cases in order to declare a public health emergency of international concern, as this was the only basis on which it would be possible, according to their own made-up rules, which all governments of the member states of the World Health Organization had agreed to use untested new drugs, the experimental injections, on people.